Okay, guys, so today we're going to talk about the nervous system. And it's kind of crazy. In this class, we cover this all in one day, which is a trip because in A&P 1, or it's actually in A&P 2, this takes 3.5 weeks to cover. Which doesn't mean that we're going to cram everything that would really take 3.5 weeks into one class. We're just going to kind of hit on the main parts of it. All right, we're going to hit on the highlights. The first thing that we're going to talk about is kind of a general organization of how the nervous system is broken up. So, the nervous system is composed of all these different divisions, right? But there's two fundamental, kind of like largest divisions that we can divide the nervous system up into. And that consists of the central nervous system, which is abbreviated CNS, and then the peripheral nervous system, okay, which is abbreviated PNS. Okay, so first off, like, what do you guys think the deal with the central nervous system is? What do you think it does? Yeah, it's really like our control center. And really, if you could think about one word that it does, the central nervous system integrates. And integration just means that it takes input, it takes a bunch of information, and it makes sense of it. You know, so it like adds it up and makes sense of it. What organs are associated with our central nervous system?
Just the brain and spinal cord.
Yeah, just the brain and spinal cord. That's it. Okay, so our central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. All right. And so we'll just do brain and spinal cord. Now, your peripheral nervous system is everything else. It's everything associated with the nervous system that's not the brain and the spinal cord. What's left over? Yeah, just a bunch of nerves, like cranial, including the cranial nerves, right? But it's just a bunch of nerves that are running through our body. Now, those nerves have two major jobs, all right? And that's why I'm going to draw two boxes for the peripheral nervous system. All right, so it's one division, but there's two real jobs. First, one side, or one kind of job of the peripheral nervous system is to sense things about our environment and relay that information to our brain, all right? And so I'm going to kind of draw a arrow where the peripheral nervous system functions in a sensory kind of capacity, right? Think about all of your, sensory receptors in your hands. We've got like thermoreceptors. We've got a whole bunch of different receptors. We can kind of list them here. We've got a bunch of different receptors. We've got thermoreceptors. What do they detect?
Heat.
Heat, right? Perfect. We've got mechanoreceptors. What do you think they would detect?
Movement.
No. Well, they detect force, okay? They detect force. Like mechanics is the study of force, so these things they're going to detect pressure, vibration, touch, okay? We've got tons of mechanoreceptors buried under our skin, and those respond to things like pressure and vibration. They carry that signal to the brain, right? And then the brain, the central nervous system, that's job is to integrate it and make sense of it. We also have a couple of other receptors. We've got photoreceptors. What do you think they do? What do they detect? Yeah, they're in our vision. They're in our eye. Okay. We've got chemoreceptors. What do you think they detect? Chemicals, right? That's like smell and taste. Okay, and that's all taste and smell really are. Is you have specialized receptors in the epithelium of our nose and in our taste buds, and like for example. We have taste buds that are sensitive to salty things, okay? What chemical do you think those little taste buds respond to? Sodium and chloride, right? Like basically sodium. you know, and that makes sense. They're just detecting chemicals. We also have nociceptors. All right, Nociceptors. These guys detect pain. All right, so anytime you feel pain, those are detected by a nociceptor, and basically, you know, it got disturbed or kind of like pushed on, and it caused that nerve to fire, and it sent a pain signal to our brain. Now, all these receptors are going to be connected to other nerves that send information to the brain. So they just kind of carry that signal on a highway. Now, all of these receptors and all the nerves they're connected to, what direction are they sending information? To the brain or away from the brain? To the brain. There's a special name for nerves and fibers, or nerves and neurons that send information to the brain, and they are called afferent nerves. A-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. So afferent is to the brain.
Sensory division, that's what.
Sensory division, that's right. Sensory division, they all consist of afferent nerves that carry information to the brain. And they're just, you know, they're sensing things about our environment. Oh, there's one more type of sensor too, and I'm going to list it. It's called Reo Receptors, P-R-O-P-R-I-O, and then receptor. This is a special type of sensor it's located a lot of times in our muscles, and it gives the brain information about the position of the muscles at any given time. And it really helps us to kind of smooth out a lot of our complex motions like walking and dancing and jumping and stuff. We have no conscious awareness of that information, but it's sent to the brain and it's very important. So just think of proprioceptors as behind the scenes information about position that the brain kind of uses. All right? So, okay, that's cool. We've got sensory side. It sends information to the brain integrates that and makes sense of it. And then what does the brain do about it? What's kind of the next step?
React.
Yeah, it's got to react. So the brain is going to send out a signal that leaves the brain and goes out to, I don't know, like a muscle or an organ or whatever it may be. This leads us to the second division of the peripheral nervous system. This is called the motor division. So these are nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord, but they're sending information away from the brain. The kind of collective term for any nerve or neuron that sends information away from the brain is called an efferent nerve. Okay? We can divide the peripheral nervous system into two different categories based on commands that we consciously control and then commands that are completely out of our conscious control. The commands that we can consciously control, they are part of the somatic nervous system. So let's think about this. These are commands that are leaving the brain. They're motor commands, and we can consciously control them. What do you think they're going to, who are they going to tell? What are they going to cause? Like, what organs are they going to stimulate?
Mostly skeletal muscles.
Yeah, mostly skeletal muscles. Like, right? If we wanted to move our arm or jump, that's basically going to be controlled by the somatic nervous system of the peripheral nervous system. All right. The other division that consists of motor commands that we cannot control, that consists of that's composed of the autonomic nervous system. So if the somatic nervous system is going to control skeletal muscles, what do you think the autonomic nervous system is going to control?
Smooth muscles.
What's that?
Smooth muscles?
Smooth muscles,
Cardiac.
mostly. Cardiac muscles, and, well, yeah, and glands. Okay? So we can call smooth muscle, cardiac, muscle, and then glands. Like, think about all the glands in our body, all the endocrine glands. Like, we're not telling those glands when to release their hormones. It happens automatically. Right? The autonomic nervous system is divided into two categories. Okay? And we'll talk about this here a little bit later. The first category of the autonomic nervous system is called the Sympathetic Division. And the other one, anybody know what that one's called? Parasympathetic. Parasympathetic. Think of the sympathetic division. This is most active during really stressful times. This is your fight or flight kind of division of your nervous system. Like when you get really stressed out or very scared, that system kicks in, you get really nervous, your heart rate goes up, breathing rate goes up. We'll talk about all. So this is kind of like sympathetic is fight or flight. Or flight. And parasympathetic, this is rest and relax. This is most active when you're nice and relaxed. So that's kind of the general organization of everything that we'll talk about today. We'll step through it. We're not going to go into crazy detail about all this, but we'll kind of step through it. All right. First thing we need to talk about, though, before we kind of get into more detail with what happens with all of these different systems, is we need to talk about the smallest cells that make up the nervous system. So when we talked about the muscle, we talked about muscle fibers and sarcomeres. Well, now we can talk about the smallest little part of the nervous system that does the job of the nervous system. And this guy, this cell, anybody know what it's called? Like neuron, you got it. Good old neurons. Neuron. Neurons kind of look like this. They're cells, so they have a nucleus. All right. On one side, they have all these little branches that come off like this. They're kind of around the nucleus. All these tiny little branches. Then on the other side, it kind of comes down into a cone-like shape. And then you have a long extension. A long tube that will then end in kind of a dead end. A little bit of terminology just to kind of tell you what we're talking about here. This is the nucleus, right? Like any cell, it's got a nucleus. This portion of the neuron right here, this whole little portion, that's your cell body. Now, if we take a step back, the whole purpose of this cell is to initiate and deliver an electrical signal. Okay, that's all the nerves really do, is they just transmit an electrical signal. So this guy's job is just kind of initiate an electrical signal and send it on down the line. This part of the neuron, its job is to receive a signal, receive another signal from either another neuron or a sensory cell or something like that. So this part receives. What do you call these little extensions that receive a signal? Dendrites. Perfect. All right, so this guy is a dendrite. This little part right here, right where the you have dendrites on one side, and the kind of cell body kind of condenses down into that tube. This part right here is called an axon hillock. And it's important. I'll tell you why in a second. But this part of the neuron, from here to here, this part of the neuron is responsible for transmitting the signal. So we'll say it transmits. You know, it like sends the signal along its way. Right. What's the name of this part? Axon. Good. And then here, where the axon kind of dead ends, this is called the Axon Terminal. And it's probably going to connect to another neuron, or it can connect to a muscle. Remember, we've already kind of talked about this in the muscle cells. It would connect onto a muscle. In that case, it's called the Neuromuscular Junction. But nonetheless, if this is like another neuron, let's say this is the dendrite of another neuron, what do we call that little space between them? Between the...
Synapse?
Yeah, perfect. Synapse. Yeah, the same word we learned before. And so if that receives, this transmits, this kind of sends it to the next guy. I don't have a one word. Like we'll say sends along. That's not very descriptive, but you guys get the point. This guy receives it, he transmits it, and he sends it along its way. Okay. Now, what else can we say about this? Well, the Axon Hillock is actually a really important part of the neuron because that's where the neuron decides whether or not it's going to send its own signal. So it could be receiving signals from all different types of neurons. Some neurons might be telling it to be like, oh, you need to fire. Other neurons might be telling, you know what, you need to just like not fire. You need to stop firing. Well, it takes all the information that it receives and it makes a decision right here next to the nucleus, the Axon Hillock. Be like, you know what, I'm getting enough signals from all these different dendrites that I'm going to send a signal of my own. That decision happens at the Axon Hillock, and when it happens, it sends an electrical impulse down the length of the axon to stimulate the next nerve along its way. So that's kind of the importance of the Axon Hillock, is that's where it decides whether or not it's going to fire on its own. Now, we're going to talk about some kind of tricky stuff now. We're going to talk about exactly what makes up this electrical signal that the axon kind of sends along its way. Well, first off, how fast do you think that electrical signal travels down the length of the axon?
Super fast.
So it's probably, is it like light speed? Probably. Okay, it's probably like, do you think it's as fast as like the signal in your HDMI cable of your TV? Faster. Well, it turns out, that's what most people think, but it turns out the speed of this impulse going down the axon is between 1 to 10 meters per second. So it travels between 1 to 10 meters per second. That's ranging from kind of like a fast walk to, you know, a slow-moving car. So it's not that fast. It's not light speed, in other words. And we'll explain kind of why it's that slow, but it's still pretty darn fast. It's a lot faster than hormones, okay? When we think about hormones getting like dumped into our bloodstream and circulating around, it's still about the fastest that our body can achieve. And but nonetheless, we still have to deal with a certain delay. Like when we tell our muscles to fire, we have to wait for that signal to get from our brain to our muscle before we can fire. I mean, that's just inherent delay that we have to deal with. Okay, this is how it works. It depends on two different concepts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a part of the axon right here. The first thing, in order for this axon to fire, it needs to set up a certain condition in that axon so it's kind of ready, so it's kind of like primed for it to send a signal. And this condition is called the resting potential. Resting potential. Okay. So again, this is the axon, this is the inside, this is the outside. And before this axon is going to fire, it has to set up this set of conditions. What it does is I'm going to draw two sets of ions. There are these little pumps in the cell membrane. All right? They're little proteins. And this guy is a sodium, potassium pump. Okay? It's like a little protein. It's a pump, so it uses energy. And what it's going to do is it's going to pump sodium into the axon, and it's going to pump sodium out of the axon. And it's going to do this so much so that, I'm going to label it, we'll put sodium in green, which is the abbreviation, not sodium, potassium in green, excuse me. Potassium, the abbreviation is K plus. K is going to be in green, and so it's just putting green potassium ions in very high concentration on the inside of the axon, right? And there's like tons of them, and it keeps putting more and more and more. At the same time, it's moving sodium ions outside of the membrane. So there's only like a couple sodium ions on the inside, and there's tons of sodium ions on the outside. And we'll just put like a couple of potassium here. And it just keeps doing this and doing this. Now, what happens is that membrane is a little bit leaky to to potassium. If I get that right. So that membrane has like little holes in it, like little like protein channels that allow some potassium to leak across if it wants to. So if we think about it, if this membrane is kind of leaky to potassium, what's potassium going to do? Like let's say like a few potassium ions could cross the membrane if it wanted to. Let's think about diffusion. What do we know about diffusion? High concentration to low concentration, right? Things want to spread out. So in this case, what's potassium going to want to do? Is it going to want to leave or stay in? It's going to want to leave. It's like, oh my gosh, we're so crowded in here, but there's hardly any potassium on the outside. Diffusion is really, forcing it to leave. And there's a couple of little leaky protein channels for it to leave, so potassium kind of leaks out, and we'll do a dotted line for this. All right? So potassium leaks out. Now, if I were to draw a chart of voltage over time, think of voltage, the same thing. Voltage is the same thing as a charge. All right, so think of it as like the positive, negative charge inside the membrane. So it'll be like voltage / charge. And let's say, I don't know, we started out around 0 before potassium started leaking. All right, so now the voltage, it was about balanced. You had positive things on the inside, and sodium's also positive. And you had positive things on the outside. But now we have positive things that are leaving the membrane. What's going to happen to the charge inside the membrane if positive things leave? So think of it almost like your bank account. If like you have positive things like dollars leaving your bank account, what's going to happen to your bank account? It's going to go negative, right? And that's exactly what happens. Is because we have this imbalance, and potassium starts leaving, charge goes down until it gets so negative that it can't go out anymore. What do we know about positive and negative things? They attract, okay? So even though there's still a lot of potassium in here and still it wants to diffuse out, now the inside of this membrane has gotten so negative that the electrical charge is starting to pull it back in. So right around -70, they get balanced. All right. This right here, -70, that's your resting potential. That's what's going on in every neuron in our bodies when they're relaxed, when they're not firing.
Is there a negative charge inside of there, or is it just becoming negative? I mean, is there like chloride or something in there?
There are chloride ions, but those chloride ions can kind of move all over the place. So there's an imbalance, right? Just think of it as an imbalance. There are negative ions, but the membrane is quite permeable to those negative ions. That's why we don't kind of mention them. You know what I mean? So in other words, just think of it as an imbalance of these positive ions, okay? Like there's more positive ions here than there are here, and that's why it goes negative, okay? All right, so take-home message. I know this is pretty complicated stuff. Just remember that at rest, the charge inside the axon is negative, and that's due to the sodium-potassium pump moving sodium and potassium on different sides of the neuron, and due to the fact that potassium leaks out. Sodium leaks in just a tiny bit, but not nearly enough to offset that negative charge.
Can you say that whole thing one more time?
Yeah. So the take-home message is that when neurons are at rest and they're ready to fire, the charge inside the neuron is negative. It's about negative 70. And that negative charge, or resting potential, is due to the fact that the sodium-potassium pumps are moving the ions on different sides of the membrane, and that potassium can slowly leak out. And as potassium leaks out, that causes the charge to be negative 70. And really, if you got confused by that, just remember, at rest, potassium's in, sodium's out, right? And it's negative 70. Like that's the really like the basic kind of story. And that's okay. So now let's talk about how the neuron fires. So that's what the neuron's doing at rest. Let's talk about what the neuron does when it fires. I'm going to draw another neuron right here. And this is going to be called the action potential. All right, so this is the action potential. So we've got another set of proteins in the membrane that we haven't drawn yet. I'm going to draw some protein channels in red. Those guys let sodium through. And I'm going to draw some protein channels in green. These let potassium through. All right, I'm going to label these guys. This red one, this is a voltage-gated sodium channel. So, voltage-gated sodium channel. And this guy is a voltage-gated potassium channel. So at rest, where's all the sodium, inside or out?
At rest.
At rest. It's in. Yes, so sodium's out. Sodium's out, that's right. At rest, sodium is out. So we got all this sodium out. All this sodium out. And where's potassium, in or out? Yeah. You can always remember this by like potassium, K, you're okay. Like, you know, the abbreviation is K. Where sodium, Na, nah. Like, you're not okay. It's not okay to be there. All right, so potassium's in, sodium's out. Now, this is when funny things happen. So, right around a very specific voltage of negative 55 millivolts, this is all in millivolts, there's this threshold. Negative 55 is a threshold. And what that means is that if, for whatever reason, if the voltage inside this membrane rises just a little bit to negative 55, Okay, so if it goes from negative 70 to negative 55, that causes a really specific series of events to happen. First thing that happens is that these voltage-gated sodium channels open wide up when negative 55 hits. They just go pop, they open right up. Okay, so we'll label this as right here at negative 55. We'll say sodium channel opens. Okay. What's sodium going to want to do? It's going to rush in, right? For two reasons. Number one, there's a lot of sodium out there already. It wants to diffuse out. And then look at the charge. This is negative. What's the charge of sodium? Positive. So he flies in. And these sodium fly in super fast. And they're all happy about it. What's that going to do to the charge inside the membrane? Well, if we have positive things coming in, like dollar signs coming in, your bank account goes positive, right? In fact, it's going to fly all the way up to about positive 30. Okay? It just flies right in. Then, just a fraction of a second later, like a couple milliseconds later, the sodium channels automatically close, right? So right here, they were open. Now, right here, the sodium channel closes. And at that very same moment, those potassium channels open. So at the very same moment that these guys close, sodium channel closes, and then the potassium channel opens. So now, this guy's closed again. Potassium channel opens wide up. What's potassium going to want to do? Rush out. Why? Two forces. Diffusion for one. There's already a lot of potassium in there. And then look at the charge. It's positive in here now. And potassium hates positive things. So potassium is going to fly out. What's that going to do to the charge of the membrane, inside the membrane? It's going to bring it back down. And in fact, it brings it back down all the way to here. Then, a millisecond or two later, right about here, the potassium channels close, and then the pump starts moving things back to where they should be, and the membrane potential gets restored back to negative 70. All right? And this whole, kind of like that little hill, that's called the action potential. That's the signal that happens in the nerve. So it's really just ions moving back and forth. Along this part of the curve, who's moving across the membrane? Which ion? Sodium. Sodium. And he's going in or out? In. Yep. So we'll say right here, sodium in, and then right here, who's moving? Potassium. Where's potassium going? Great. And then after all that happens, the sodium-potassium pump starts working again. So that's cool. Okay, so we just kind of described what happens at one little location in the membrane, but we haven't really explained why that signal flies down the length of the axon. And this is why that happens. So if this little part of the, let me draw a couple more pumps here, or a couple more channels. So let's say this little part of the axon experienced an action potential. And it experienced this really dramatic rise and drop in voltage, okay? If this voltage in this part of the neuron went all the way up to positive 30, do you think this part of the neuron is going to stay right at negative 70, even though it's right next door? No, it's just like heat. Like that change in voltage is going to spread out a little bit, you know? Like we're going to get like a really dramatic spike in voltage. That's going to cause the voltage in the neuron just down the way from it to rise up like a little bit. But what's crazy is what do we know happens when the voltage goes from -70 to -55. Yeah, it causes them to pop open. So when this guy experiences an action potential, it's going to cause the voltage to rise just a little bit next door, and it's going to rise just enough to cause that sodium channel to open, then that potassium channel opens, and then that's going to cause this guy to reach threshold, and so it's going to fly down the axon like a chain reaction. And that's basically how it gets to where it's going. Okay. Okay. There's a way that we can speed up how fast that signal travels down the axon, and it's with these special cells called Schwann cells. Schwann cells are like these little cells that are located right next to the axon, and they wrap around the axon like a bunch of times with their cell membrane, and they're like these little tubes that just encase the axon. So this is called a Schwann cell. And you'll get a bunch of these guys that go all the way down the axon. Right? And so what these Schwann cells do is that they insulate that signal. And where there's a Schwann cell, you don't get any protein channels that are exposed to the outside environment. And it causes the action potential to kind of jump down the axon really quickly. You only are going to get those channels in between the Schwann cells, like right here and right here, and that causes the signal to move a lot faster. That's one way that you can speed up the action potential. Another couple important points about the action potential is that, okay, let's say, you, cut your finger or something, right? It's like a little cut. It's not that big of a deal. Those nociceptors are going to be stimulated, those pain receptors, and they're going to send an action potential in the nerve that leads to your brain, okay? Now, let's say, instead of getting like a little cut, you got like a big cut, and now it like really hurts. How is your brain going to know that it's a big cut versus a little cut in regards to action potential? Does the action potential get bigger or faster with a big cut? No. In fact, that's one important thing about action potentials is they never change their magnitude or speed. They're always the same. Okay? It's an all or none response. It's either there or it's not. But we can tell the difference between, like a weak stimulus and a strong stimulus. How do you think our nerves encode that? Like, how does our brain tell, like, oh, this is a bad cut versus, oh, this is just like a little, prick or something?
We can see it.
What's that?
We can see it.
You can see it, but how does, like something, if you could, like, tap your finger and that, like, doesn't even hurt, but if you slam a car door on it, like, that really hurts. Like, what's the difference in action potentials there? How do we encode that difference?
Nerves fire?
What's that?
More nerves fire?
So that's part of it. You might be stimulating more nerve, right? More nerves at the same time, so your brain's receiving action potentials from multiple nerves at the same time. But if we just stick to one nerve, your brain can actually tell the difference between one neuron. Your one neuron can encode the strength of a stimulus. You can't change the height of the magnitude of the action potential. You can't change the speed, but you can change how often that action potential fires. Okay, so the frequency. Like when when our nerves encode something really strong, like a really intense pain, it's like action potentials constantly. It's just a rapid fire action potential. Where if it's not that strong, it could be like one action potential. Okay, and that's kind of what happens there. All right, let's take a break. Like a 10-minute break. All right, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. I'm gonna have like one more thing to say about neurons, and then we'll switch gears. This is good info. Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break. I'll meet you guys back here at like 10 till. Now, remember when we talked about the muscles, and when the nerve connected to the muscle at Neuromuscular Junction, we had all those neurotransmitters that were released and all that? So the same thing happens right here. I'm just going to kind of go over that real quick about what happens in that case. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a review. So when the action potential reaches the axon terminal, the only thing that's different that happens is that it causes a new set of channels in the cell membrane to open. And those channels are calcium channels. So you guys remember calcium was super important for the muscle to contract. Well, calcium is also really important for the action potential to kind of jump across that synapse. So we have calcium channels that will let calcium come in to the cell membrane. And when calcium comes in, that causes all those little, remember those little bubbles that contained neurotransmitters? Remember we talked about that with muscles? Do you guys remember what those bubbles are called? They're called vesicles, right? So these vesicles are like these little bubbles. When calcium comes in, it allows those bubbles to unite with the cell membrane. I mean, think about it. They're just like two little bubbles. Like when you have bubbles in the kitchen sink and two bubbles touch each other, what happens? They pop together and make a bigger bubble. So in this case, when these two guys touch, like when this smaller bubble touches the outside, they become the same thing, like that. And all the little neurotransmitters that were housed in that vesicle diffuse across the synapse. And that causes the dendrite on the other side to have an electrical signal itself. Okay?
So that piece that's connected to the synapse is the dendrite.
Yes, this right here, that's a good point. That's a dendrite from another neuron. Okay? And specifically what happens is these neurotransmitters, they'll bind onto another little protein that's hanging out in the cell membrane of that dendrite. And when it binds onto that protein will, it'll be a little protein channel that opens up that lets sodium go in, right? And so sodium will cause a change in the membrane potential in this dendrite, and that signal will get sent to the nucleus. Now there's one key difference, and we're not going to get into the details of this too much, but you guys remember how action potentials are all or none? They never change their size or strength. Those exist in the axons, but the electrical signals that exist in the dendrites are a little bit different. They're called graded potentials. So in the dendrite, we'll have graded potentials. And what this looks like is this. So if we have voltage as a function of time, at rest, what's the resting potential? Negative 70, that's perfect. So at rest, it's down here. And let's say that one vesicle only released its contents of neurotransmitters into the synapse. So it wasn't that many neurotransmitters. And that just caused maybe a couple of these protein channels to open. Then you'll get a little bump, because only a little bit of sodium came in. But then, if you get a lot of these neurotransmitters to get released, probably due to a high frequency of action potentials that fly down, so if more neurotransmitters, what do you think it's going to do to the change in voltage?
Go up a little higher?
Yeah, it's going to be much higher. All right? So a graded potential, that just means that there can be variation in the strength of the signal, but that only exists in the dendrites. And that's kind of cool because let's say this dendrite got this little blip. And that's the only signal this neuron got. So this little blip travels down here. Do you think it's going to cause that neuron to fire an action potential? Not really. It's raining really hard.
Thought that is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out.
It's
Why
rain.
water?
Yeah, it sounds like it's coming in.
So then I have a question. So
Yeah.
if the strength is high there at the end, couldn't that be the reason why you feel pain more?
Well, okay, perfect. All right. So this contributes to that, and it's kind of how we can process things with multiple neurons. So in other words, the strength of that graded potential only influences whether or not the action potential fires. You know what I mean?
No.
So the strength of this graded potential is right here in the dendrite, okay? If it's a low graded potential, if it's a very weak one, then it's probably not going to induce an action potential, and that signal stops altogether, okay? Right? But if it's strong enough, and let's say it got a pretty strong graded potential from this dendrite, and at the same time it got a pretty strong graded potential from this dendrite, those signals will add together, and the axon hillock says, you know what, it's strong enough, let's fire the action potential, right? And so it's kind of like this just determines whether or not the signal goes or doesn't go.
But it doesn't have any effect on how
Right.
strong the signal is, right?
Right. Right. No, that was a great question. It just determines whether or not the signal is going to keep going or not. Whereas the action potential, let's say that, this would be a great example, in that case where we got a really bad injury on our finger, this neuron's probably going to receive information from all of the nerves that it's connected to because they're all stimulated. They're probably going to be sending it very strong graded potentials because the action potentials that are received, that are going to each dendrite, they're going to be very frequent, like and like everyone is going to be receiving a lot of action potentials. So this guy's going to be like, you know what, not only am I going to fire an action potential, but I'm going to fire a lot of action potentials in sequence, in high frequency. So the brain knows, wow, this is a big deal. Like this is a strong signal. Really, the take home that I want you guys to take away from this: graded potentials in dendrites, action potentials in axons. Action potentials are always the same strength. Graded potentials vary on their strength. Sometimes, and this is probably a little bit more detailed than you guys even need to know, some dendrites will actually have a change in voltage that goes this way. Okay? It goes down, so it gets more negative. Those are called inhibitory graded potentials. Because if a dendrite, if this dendrite does a signal like this, it goes down, more negative. This dendrite over here has a signal that's just your standard graded potential. If they receive it at the same time, what's going to be the net result of those two guys? It just cancels out completely, right? And so there's going to be no effect. This is a stimulatory, graded potential. This is inhibitory. That's really more detail than you need to know, but it gives you a sense of the complexity of how things can be kind of organized here.
Is that what like drugs do? Like when you take the drugs, is that like what the inhibitory drugs do? Is send it lower?
Well, this is so a lot of drugs, what they'll do is they will inhibit the reuptake of these neurotransmitters. So like selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they will block the sites, or they will deactivate the enzyme, or they'll just block the protein channels that allow all of these neurotransmitters to be sucked back up in that axon terminal. Let's say this neurotransmitter is serotonin, and so if you block the reuptake, serotonin just accumulates, it keeps accumulating in very high concentrations in the synapse. What's that going to do to the strength of the graded potential in the next dendrite? Yeah, it's just going to be like really, really, really strong. And typically, the receptors that receive serotonin, they're associated with the pleasure centers in our brain, and so that kind of increases that sense of well-being. You know, and it does that because serotonin is getting stuck in that synapse, and it's just causing a more kind of dramatic nervous signal down the line. All right.
So what about like a lot of times you hear like when cops get shot, they don't know that they've been shot.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of factoring in adrenaline.
Definitely.
Does that change this process at all?
So that deals more with the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So absolutely, you know what, you're exactly right. And what happens is when the sympathetic nervous system gets stimulated dramatically, one effect that it has. So sympathetic happens when you're really stressed out or during a time of, really intense emotions like that. What it does is it basically inhibits the signals coming from your pain receptors. So let's say this is a neuron that's connected to a couple pain receptors in your skin or wherever it may be. The release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, the adrenaline, is going to basically shut down any signal that's coming to this neuron. It just tells the brain to ignore those signals completely, right? And so, in other words, let me back up. Those signals are still being relayed to the brain just the same. The brain just ignores them completely. So that's more of a problem. That's more processing with the central nervous system, not the peripheral, right? So this processing is all happening in the peripheral, but the central nervous system just says, you know what, I don't care about those pain signals. Like, we're just going to ignore those right now. Right. Cool. Any other questions on this stuff? All right. Enough with the small stuff. Let's talk about some bigger kind of components of the nervous system. All right. We're going to talk about the central nervous system for just a little bit. Our good old brain is composed of a couple of different parts. All right? Our good old brain. And you know what I might do to save save time here? I might project a really nice figure in the book. All right? Instead of drawing it out. Change it up a little bit. And it allows us to kind of cover more ground. So, I'll draw a really basic kind of drawing while this guy warms up, and then we'll talk about things in more detail. So the brain's composed of a couple of different basic parts. In the middle of the brain, we have a couple of different structures. I'll draw these guys in blue. This guy in blue is called the Diencephalon. All right, the Diencephalon is right in the middle of the brain and consists of a couple of different structures, namely the Thalamus and the Hypothalamus. Just behind the Diencephalon, we have a series of 3 little structures that kind of go down like that. At the end of this guy, this whole thing in red is called the brainstem. And the brainstem turns into the spinal cord. That's the part of the brain that leaves the head and goes down. So this is the spinal cord. All right. Behind the brainstem, we have a big, like, cauliflower-looking structure. Kind of looks like this, and it has all these little ridges to it. That's our good old cerebellum. Cerebellum. And then we have 2 large cerebral hemispheres that kind of cover all this stuff. And so I'll kind of draw this kind of like this. It kind of looks like this. You have a temporal lobe. It kind of goes down like up like that. Yep. And that's not too bad. That's like the general structure. And this is your cerebral hemisphere. Okay. So that's like the real brief overview. Now I'm going to show you a much better picture that was done professionally. Right here. That's perfect. Yeah, this is great. So this is just on page 240. And I'll just kind of talk you through some of this stuff. Pull this down. All right, so here we have the diencephalon. This large part of it, that's your thalamus. Your hypothalamus is here. The brainstem is just below that and extends down into the spinal cord. Your cerebellum is behind, right? My cerebellum's a little wimpy. He needs to be more like this size. Right. Okay. And then your cerebral hemispheres, that's your large kind of brain area that covers all of that. Here, let me put it right there. So we're pretty good on that. Diencephalon, cerebellum in the back. This is your brainstem, and then your cerebral hemisphere. Now, your cerebral hemisphere, that's what we're going to talk about first. It's pretty amazing stuff. So your cerebral hemisphere, this is what allows us to process most complex thought and emotions and critical thinking that we are able to achieve, in daily life. And what's cool about the cerebral hemispheres, if we go right over here, is that different part of the cerebral hemispheres have different jobs, okay? The brain itself, or the cerebral hemispheres themselves, are divided up into a couple of different lobes, and those correspond to the bones that they're right underneath. Right here, this is underneath the frontal bones, this is the frontal lobe. We've got the parietal lobe, which is right underneath the parietal bone. Temporal lobe, underneath the temporal bone, and the occipital lobe is right in the back. What's crazy about this whole arrangement is that you see this area that's part of the frontal lobe right in here. In fact, I'll do a hybrid projection and drawing on this side, because this is actually pretty cool stuff. So here, I'm just going to draw the large lateral view of the brain. We've got frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. There's a deep groove right there that divides the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. And there's a region of the brain tissue that's right in front of that groove called the central sulcus. Well, that region of the brain is called the primary motor cortex. Primary motor cortex. And really, we're just looking at what I've drawn is just this little area right here. Okay? That's the part of the brain. What do you think it does, just based on its name? Motor commands, all right? Associated with our somatic nervous system. So these are the commands that our brain sends away from the brain that tells our muscles to move. Are those afferent or efferent fibers? Efferent. Efferent, good, yep. And so that's exactly what's going on there.
Is that related to the central sulcus?
Yes, so the central sulcus is the little groove that divides the parietal from the frontal lobe. And so this area is just anterior to the central sulcus, which is right there. Another thing that's crazy about this is that, each part of this region of the primary motor cortex corresponds to a different part of the body. So if I were to show you guys a different view that looks like this, here I've taken the brain, like we're looking straight onto the brain. I've done a section this way. So this is the side of the brain, this is the top of the brain, this is the middle of the brain. And what I've done is I've done a section right through the primary motor cortex. So I've done a cut like right through there. What you'll see is that this part of the cortex sends commands to like the foot, to the knee, the hands. This huge part of the brain is kind of restricted for sending commands to the face, and then the tongue is way down here. And you know how we figured this out? Is like injuries. So if somebody got, like, I don't know, a nail stuck in their brain right up here, we started to notice that the fingers and hands started to go completely paralyzed, right? They could still feel them, they could still get sensation, but they just couldn't control them. What would happen if you experienced an injury like right here?
Your face would be like,
It would be,
you wouldn't be able to control it.
yeah, you wouldn't be able to move it, right?
Is that what happens when you have a stroke?
Yeah, so with a stroke, what a stroke is you'll get a clot in one of the arteries that feeds a section of the brain, and like once that happens, that brain tissue dies, right? It just dies due to lack of oxygen, and unfortunately it just doesn't regenerate.
Is it because your face is like the biggest portion of the motor control side of your brain that it becomes that you get that partial paralysis? Is that why usually that happens?
Oh, right, yeah. So what'll happen is that typically you'll get, so I'm kind of guessing here because I'm not 100% sure, but you'll get cell death on one side of the brain, and typically like the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body,
Right.
and so that's why you kind of get that paralysis on one side, you know?
And it doesn't fix, but can you learn other ways to go around it in your brain eventually?
You can. So in some cases you can. A great example of this is dealing with speech. So right around here, this area in the brain, right about there, this is called Broca's area. Broca, sorry, you're right. Broca. Good call. Broca's area. And Broca's area is associated with speech, right? So that's what sends motor commands to our mouth associated with speech. And the trick here is there's been cases where people will have an accident, stroke, and they will get damage to Broca's area. They can understand everything, but they cannot speak, all right? Now, here's the deal. Broca's area is typically on one side of the brain. On the other side of the brain, you get a complementary area that we use for singing. So singing and speech are like two different things. And there's been cases where patients have a completely inactive Broca's area, but they will train themselves to they will train their singing part of the brain to speak again. So they'll start out with just singing, and they'll kind of train that so they can understand, or they can produce speech again. Unfortunately, if there's a stroke to a part of the primary motor cortex and those neurons are dead, there's really no coming back. And this is an important point, is that neurons in the central nervous system cannot regenerate at all. They actually have supporting cells called oligodendrocytes, which you don't need to remember, but these supporting cells prevent all types of regeneration in the central nervous system. However, in the peripheral nervous system, nerves can regenerate. It just happens really slowly. That's why when, I don't know if you've ever experienced an injury, you had a bad cut, and you might experience numbness to that area for a couple of months, and then you kind of slowly regain sensation. I got stung on my toe by a stingray a couple years ago, and the toxins that it injected into my toe just really tore up all those nerves, and so I was completely numb on that toe for about 6 months, and then I started to slowly regain, that sensation, because the nerves will regenerate slowly in the peripheral nervous system only, right? Okay, related to Broca's area, back here, we have a region right about here called Wernicke's area, Wernicke's area. This is the part of the brain that's responsible for understanding speech. So if you had an injury to Wernicke's area, what do you think would be your symptoms? Could you talk?
Yeah.
For sure. You just can't understand anyone, unfortunately. You just couldn't decipher speech and language. Just anterior to the primary motor cortex, you have the, I'll just draw it in dots. We're not going to go over all these, but they are kind of interesting. You have the primary motor, make sure I don't say the wrong thing here. Oh yeah, no. You have the premotor cortex. I wasn't going to say the wrong thing. Premotor cortex. And what the premotor cortex does is it, yeah, question?
Yeah, if you got damage in the motor keys area, would you be able to understand what you're saying?
No.
I don't know.
No, there's
That's a
speech
great
comes out-
question.
It does come out weird, like they don't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, they can speak, but they don't always make sense. And they'll get off on different subjects and.
Can you read though? Like, could you read something out loud?
I don't
I
know.
don't
That's
think
a
so.
good
I
question.
think they can read, but they can't speak it.
I wonder if like the internal monologue is effective.
Yeah, like if you can
Yeah,
think
I can't
words.
remember.
I don't know.
They did. I know they
They're very
were
close.
Sykeston, so that's like
That's pretty cool.
or stuff. So
Yeah,
so
no,
learns
cool.
it. But yeah, they
Yeah.
like they speak and their sentences are really weird and it's hard to make sense of what they're saying.
That's interesting. Good questions, guys.
I don't know about the internal, but I know.
Yeah.
I mean, always like coming out.
Cool.
It's interesting.
Premotor cortex, that just helps your primary motor cortex send out complex commands. So if you're getting ready to, I don't know, like hit a serve on the tennis court or something like that, a complex motion, the premotor cortex kind of gets those signals in order before they're sent out. Right behind the central sulcus in the parietal lobe, we have a strip of tissue. I'm going to draw this in blue. This is your primary somatosensory cortex. Right? What do you think that does?
What is that again?
Somatosensory. So S-O-M-A-T-O and then sensory and then cortex. So somato, like somatic, somatosensory cortex, and its primary is at the beginning. Primary somatosensory cortex. So if the motor cortex sends out commands, what do you think the primary somatosensory cortex does? Yeah, so this is the part of the brain that receives sensory input from our body. And just like the primary motor cortex, it's divided up in different regions. They're very similar to the motor cortex. Like here receives sensory input from the face, the fingers, the head, the neck, the knee. You'll notice that like the face is really big here. That's because we have a lot of sensors on our face and it occupies a lot of brain space. You get an injury right here. What's going to be the symptoms?
Sense of touch.
What's that?
Sense of touch is a common.
Yeah, so you just can't feel anything on your hand. Can you move your hand?
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Good. Right posterior to, make sure you get right. Yep. Right around here, and again, these areas are approximate. You'll have an area that's called the somatosensory association complex, or cortex. Somatosensory association cortex. And what this does, and this is kind of cool, this compares the sensory information that we receive from previous experiences in memory. So in other words, let's say you, I don't know, are sitting at your desk and somebody like taps you on the shoulder, right? It's like, you know, it's like your buddies around, you know your friends are around, and someone like taps you on the shoulder. Like you're gonna be like, oh, hey, who's there? But that's only because you know that a tap on the shoulder is like a customary human behavior. And you know that, you know, like when someone taps on the shoulder, they want your attention. That's because your primary somatosensory association cortex is telling you that. If it wasn't for that, you might think that it's some type of predator trying to attack you, and you just would have no idea like what that stimulus is coming from. The same thing goes for the primary visual cortex, which is right here in the back of the occipital lobe. So this processes visual information, right? And right next to it, you have the visual association cortex. Visual association cortex. This just receives information from the eye. Like when you look at someone's face, all you're seeing is just the image. Your visual association cortex, that's what puts it into perspective and tells you, you know what, that's actually another human, that's not, you know, like a bear trying to eat you, or that's not some, you know, unidentified animal or something. You know, it kind of puts it into context of your previous memories. Right around here, in the temporal lobe, this is your, and again these are proximate, this is your primary auditory cortex. And right next to it we have an association complex for that same, you know, region of the brain. This processes hearing, you know, and when you hear a bird chirp, your association cortex goes, look, that's just a bird, you know what this is, that's why you're not startled. But if it wasn't, you might hear that sound, you might freak out, you know? Really cool story. So there was this famous rock climber who went blind, and he still, you know, like completely blind, and he still wanted to rock climb. So they developed this like device where it was a helmet, and it was hooked to a camera that took a live video feed of whatever he was looking at. And that camera was connected to this device that sat on top of his tongue. It was like this array of pins. And you know how a video image is just a series of light and dark areas, and it gives the illusion that's the picture? So this array of pins on his tongue, it would like press down on regions that were light in the image, and it would not press down on regions that were dark. So it was like transferring the image to like a physical kind of like keyboard, I guess. And he learned to see the video image through his tongue. And he was able to climb just fine, you know? But the key there is that he was training his somatosensory association cortex to understand that sensory input that it was receiving. So he was just training his brain, right? Isn't that crazy? And he was able to rock climb just by little depressions on his tongue. All right. Cool. That's enough of that for the brain. Basically, you get the story that different regions of the brain correspond to different things. Cool. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit to just telling you guys the main function of the different parts of the brain. So, we can just write these out really quick. So, if the cerebral hemispheres are responsible for like complex thought and thinking and processing, what do you think the cerebellum is used for? It is like the big structure in the back of your head. Yeah.
Is it used to organize where the information goes?
So close, all right. In fact, what the cerebellum does is it kind of coordinates and smooths out motor commands. All right. So in a sense, it does. It kind of takes motor commands coming from the primary motor cortex, and it kind of organizes them so they go to the right place at the right time. People with problems with their cerebellum, they will experience like really kind of clunky motions. You know, they can't dance very well. Like, you know, things like that are hard for them. The thalamus, which is part of the diencephalon, that's more of a relay station that, so the thalamus, think of this more as a relay station that tells sensory input coming in exactly where to go in the brain. It's almost like the front desk of a big office building. Information that comes in, it's going to tell it exactly where to go, like which floor to go to. So a lot of sensory information coming up from the spinal cord goes to the thalamus, then the thalamus will tell it to what part of the cerebral hemisphere to go to. Right. The brainstem. I want you guys to think of the brainstem as the part of the brain that controls a lot of the behind-the-scenes kind of subconscious automatic functions, such as breathing rate, heart rate, hunger, your sleep-wake cycles, things that happen behind the scenes. Just think of the brainstem as controlling that. Respiratory rate, breathing rate, heart rate, hunger, sleep, wake, things like that. Your hypothalamus. This is the part it's associated with the diencephalon. It's located right beneath the thalamus. This has a huge effect and control over our endocrine system. So a lot of the hormones that are released into our body. So in a sense, that also has a huge control over the heart rate, over your respiratory rate, because it controls a lot of the hormones that get released into your body. Think of the hypothalamus as kind of like a hormone control center. And I think that'll be good for those parts. All right. So cerebellum smooths out motor commands. Thalamus, the relay station for things coming in. The hypothalamus is kind of endocrine control. Brainstem controls a lot of the behind-the-scenes automatic functions.
So is the cerebellum specifically like motor commands? Or
Yes,
will it be like...
that's right. Specifically motor.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly right. Good. Now I'm going to erase this stuff, and we're going to talk real briefly about the spinal cord. After that, we'll talk about the autonomic nervous system for just a few minutes, and then we'll be done. This is probably the most information overload class that you'll get all year, all semester. It's all right. Okay. Our good old spinal cord. This is actually really important stuff, too. So your spinal cord is a long tube of nerves that runs from the base of the skull. You know, it starts at the brainstem, comes right out the foramen magnum in the skull, and runs all the way down. It stops at about L1, and then it kind of extends. You have smaller nerve fibers that extend down into the sacrum, okay? But the spinal cord extends from right here at the back of the skull to right about there, okay? If we were to draw if I were to take a section of the spinal cord and cut it in half, it would kind of look like this. So I did a cross section of the spinal cord. Kind of look like this. It has two halves that kind of look like this. And we'll make this kind of a 3/4 view of the spinal cord. So it looks kind of like this. You know, we cut it in half, we're kind of like looking down on it type thing. This is the part that we cut in half. Right in the middle, it has a central canal. This marker's done. So right here is a central canal. All right. And we haven't really talked about white and gray matter yet, and this is a perfect time to talk about it. Throughout the brain, throughout the central nervous system, there's two types of brain matter. You've got white matter and you've got gray matter. Okay. Gray matter has a lot of iron in it because, well, a better way to explain this is gray matter contains a lot of cell bodies and dendrites of neurons. Okay? So gray matter contains a lot of cell bodies and dendrites. Cell bodies have a lot of mitochondria in them, and mitochondria contain a lot of iron. Iron is what makes it a little bit darker and gray in color. It's just they've got a lot of cell bodies. Whereas white matter, that contains mostly axons. The point here is that if you remember back to the neuron, axons just transmit information, and axons can be super long. Let's see, let's think about the motor neuron that goes from your spinal cord all the way down to, a muscle in your lower leg. That's one neuron, and that axon could be like 3 feet long, okay? So axons can be super long, and white matter consists mostly of axons. So think of those as just a one-way highway where there's not much processing going on. It's just the signals going from point A to point B. In contrast, gray matter, that's where you have a bunch of neurons that are talking to each other. You've got cell bodies and dendrites. That's where processing can happen. And that's really the big difference. So this is like white matter, it's like a one-way street where a signal's just going from point A to point B. Gray matter is where processing kind of happens more often. In the brain, in the cerebral hemispheres, for example, the gray matter is right on the outside of the cerebral hemispheres, just like we drew over there. So the surface of the brain is going to consist of all the gray matter, all this stuff. And as we go deep into those cerebral hemispheres, that's going to be the white matter. And that kind of makes sense because on the outside, that's where all the processing happens, like right in here. And then the white matter is just taking that information back and forth. Okay? Like if you were to do, I don't know, this view of the brain where you did a frontal section and you had each cerebral hemisphere, the cortices on the outside are going to be composed of that gray matter like this. Like this is the left brain, right brain. And on the inside, that's all white matter. This is like gray, and this is white. Cool? In the spinal cord, it's a little bit different. It almost looks like an upside down butterfly, where on the inside, this is where you have gray matter, and on the outside, that's where you have white. Okay? So where are most of the axons, inside or outside of the spinal cord? Outside. Okay, perfect. Each one of these regions of the gray matter that has a name, this guy right here is called the ventral horn. This guy is called the lateral horn. And this is called the dorsal horn. And that kind of makes sense because this is like the anterior ventral side of the spinal cord, and back there is the dorsal side of the spinal cord. At each vertebrae, you have a series of nerves that leave and enter the spinal cord. On this side, you've got a series of little nerves that look like that. They come together, and they form a larger nerve that comes out here. Okay? And then on the back side, you have some little nerves that look like that. It goes like this. You got a little bump. And then it goes here, and then unites there. I know this is getting like super complicated, but there is a story to this. So, here's what's cool. These little nerves are called ventral rootlets, R-O-O-T-L-E-T-S. This is your ventral root. This is your dorsal root. Dorsal rootlets, and this is your dorsal ganglion. And I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on here. So, we've got sensory fibers, afferent fibers, that are relaying information from like all the sensory cells in our body, and they need to go up to the brain. I'm going to draw these guys in blue. These little sensory nerves are going to come in from the body to the spinal cord in this direction. They're going to go up the dorsal root. They're going to have the cell body to that neuron right here in this dorsal ganglion. In fact, ganglion just means it's a location where there's a high collection of cell bodies. Okay, it's just like a bag of marbles. It's just a bunch of cell bodies in one location. That afferent neuron is going to come in to that dorsal root. Then it's going to come in right here, and it's going to connect right here in the gray matter of the dorsal horn with another neuron that's going to go up the spinal cord to the brain. So the take-home message is the dorsal root and the rootlets, those contain afferent nerves. Those contain nerves that are sending signals toward the brain. The cell bodies of those nerves are going to be located in that dorsal ganglion. And there's not just one, there's probably like all packed full of little cell bodies. Now, that's a lot different to the ventral horn. You'll probably have some dendrites to the ventral horn right here in the gray matter, all right, because that's what gray matter is all about. You've got dendrites and cell bodies. So you'll have the dendrites and the cell bodies of a neuron here. It leaves, goes out the ventral root, comes here, and then it goes to probably a muscle. Okay? Probably like a skeletal muscle, like a leg muscle or something. Then in turn, in the lateral horn, you'll have a cell body and some dendrites that receive information from another neuron. It'll go out here, go down, go out the ventral root, and then that will go to either an organ or a gland, because that's associated with the autonomic nervous system. So if I were to label this, green is autonomic, red is motor, blue is sensory. They each have their location in the spinal cord. The lateral horn primarily contains autonomic nerves. The ventral horn contains motor nerves that go to muscles, and then the dorsal horn contains the ends of the nerves that are going to the spinal cord.
So the only nerves that go dorsally are afferent nerves?
That's right. That's right. And just like the direction, I should draw arrows here, you know, like the direction is going that way. Signals are only going this way in the dorsal side, and in the ventral side, signals are only going away. They're all efferent. And the last thing I'll talk about this is that this is where reflexes come into play. Let's say you touch a hot pan, right? Reflexes are signals or circuits in the brain that don't go to the brain itself. There's signals in the nervous system that don't go to the brain. Let's say you touch a super hot pan that stimulates a lot of nociceptors in your palm. Those are going to go into the spinal cord. Which direction? Dorsally, okay? It's afferent nerves. They go to the dorsal side. They probably come in here. In this case, it's such a strong signal, it's going to stimulate a neuron that doesn't go up or down. It's going to be an interneuron, which is just, don't worry about that. It's just a neuron that connects two other neurons. That it gets stimulated here, goes straight down through the gray matter, connects to this motor neuron directly, stimulates a couple different motor neurons. one of those motor neurons are going to go to all the flexors, all the extensors of your fingers, right? It's going to cause you to go like this. Another one of those motor neurons that are stimulated are going to go to your bicep muscle, which is going to cause you to like flex your arm. And another one's probably to your deltoid, which causes you to release or raise your arm like this. So without even your brain being notified, that pain goes straight across the spinal cord, goes out the other side, tells you to release and get your hand back. You know, and that's a reflex. All right. Cool. For the autonomic nervous system, the only thing that we're really going to focus on is the general overview of what sympathetic versus parasympathetic does. I'm going to change gears just a little bit here. I know you guys have had a lot, so we're going to go over this pretty quick. The take-home message of the sympathetic system is that, let's talk about sympathetic first. And I'll do it right here. So when we're talking about the sympathetic nervous system, this is activated during stressful times. What effect do you think it has on the heart?
Makes it faster.
Yeah, heart rate goes up. What do you think it does to the skin?
Sweat?
Sweat for sure. So it stimulates sweat glands, right? It actually is going to cause the little capillaries in your skin to constrict. Have you ever seen somebody who's really stressed out? They're pale, right? That's because it causes all the capillaries of your skin to constrict, shunts all the blood to your more vital organs, like your, skeletal muscles. Our skin's a huge reservoir of blood, and we're just capitalizing off of that. What do you think it does to the lungs?
Restrict, contract.
Yeah, speeds up breathing, and it actually causes our bronchi, which are the big tubes that go to the lungs, to dilate. So we can get more air in and out. So respiration goes up, we can get more air in and out. What do you think the sympathetic nervous system does to your digestive system?
Slows it down.
Yeah, it basically shuts it down. Okay, the last thing that you need to worry about when you're in a fight is digesting the meal, right? So it basically shuts down your digestive system. What do you think it does to your stomach specifically? Secretes more hormones and enzymes, or not so much? Not so much, okay. What do you think it does to your small intestine and large intestine? Increase peristalsis or decrease peristalsis? Decrease. It just shuts it down, like everything just stops. What do you think it does to your salivary glands? That's part of the digestive system. Yeah, it dries them up. Like saliva associated with digestion. Last thing we need to worry about is that. So you get dry mouth. What do you think it does to, let's see, what else can we talk about? What do you think the sympathetic nervous system activity is going to do to your eyes? Yeah, so that's associated with that. Basically, it's going to cause your eyes to dilate, okay? Let as much light in as possible, okay? Who cares if it's too much light? We need to see all that we can. And it's going to prime our eyes for distance vision. And evolutionarily, you can think about that. Like, it could be helpful, to be able to see things more clearly from further away, as opposed to reading a book. That's not so important. Okay, good. What do you think the opposite would do? So we have the parasympathetic system that gets really active. This is associated more with rest and relaxation. What's the parasympathetic system going to have? What effect is it going to have on the skin?
Cool it down.
Yeah. So it's going to it'll dilate those blood vessels. So if the sympathetic constricted, it'll just dilate the vessels so we can have nice like large amounts of blood in our skin. Skin's nice and flush. What's it going to do to our digestive system? Yeah, increase. It's going to promote digestion, right? Good. In the eyes, it's going to promote constricted pupils, and you can see really well close up, all right? And basically, as far as like urination goes, your parasympathetic nervous system is going to encourage urination. It's going to encourage like the relaxation of those sphincters that hold like your urine and your other waste in. And you might have experienced this. You know, when you're like super busy or even stressed, and you know, you work really hard for hours and hours, and when you finally sit down, you realize like I've got to go to the bathroom so bad, and you never knew it, right? That's because your parasympathetic nervous system is finally can kind of kick in, and it tells you got to go. One important thing about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems is it's not like a light switch where one's on, the other one's off. It operates on a continuum, you know, where like in any given time of the day, you're probably about 50% both, where if you get more stressed, it kind of tilts towards sympathetic, more relaxed, you know, it's not like an on or off type thing. And that's important. All right, guys, we went over a lot of information today. We really did. So one thing, I would just try to review some of this information in your workbooks. It'd be a great resource for just understanding, especially the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. That'll give you a little bit more input into that. We did a really good job of covering neurons in the first half, and we did a pretty good job with the central nervous system. But just review your workbooks to kind of reinforce some of those ideas, right?